Did you wreck the car?
No.
Did you race the dead?
Yes.
But the car's okay.
Uh-huh.
All right, then.
We desecrated a pet cemetery for nothing?
I never thought I would see the day that the three of us are actually available at the same time.
John, why are you so grainy? You look like
Yeah.
you're in a TV from 1996. What's happening?
I need a facelift.
God damn. All right.
It's not that you're like the theory about Sasquatch.
Right.
It's not that the picture's blurry. You're actually blurry.
This is me. This is what the room looks like. Jen, you haven't been to my place in a while. Yeah, we've updated the decorations.
Gotcha.
And me and the stuff that I drink.
Yeah, they just added fog to the room all the time.
Cool.
No, the actual answer to your question is because I bought this laptop about 6 years or so ago, and it was like the cheapest model I could find, and that was 6 years ago, so that's why the camera sucks.
Yeah, I got one of those laptops too. It was just a cheap beat. Does the job for certain things that I need, but not for all of them. So,
I mean, I have to say, other than the shitty camera, this laptop has been serving me very well for the last 6 or 7 years.
Yeah, for the little bit of money you spent for it,
yeah.
jackpot.
I think I dropped like $300 on this thing, and
if I start talking really loud, which I probably will, close the door behind me. That way I don't drive you nuts.
Which you already are.
Yeah, that's what I do.
Yeah, that's what you do. And why is that, Dave?
Cuban.
There you go.
That's all it takes. Happy, yell. Sad, yell. Dead, you still yell.
Yes, because it's residual yell.
Yeah, we can't stop.
Italians operate pretty much the same way. So
Yeah, I have a hypothesis about this. I believe that Italy, I heard this from a comedian. I think it was Russell Peters. He talked about Italy with the hand gestures. And he's always like, it's like the whole country was deaf for a period and everybody just used sign language. So I think the same thing happened at one point in Cuba. Everybody was hearing impaired. So they just started yelling, oh, yay! You know?
correct.
Hey, I mean, I don't think there's anything about Jews being loud, but, I guess I just happen to be a loud individual, so I have no excuse.
Yeah, that's why we like you, though.
That's just me. I'm just loud.
I never have to do this when you're talking, John. I'm sorry, what'd you say? Never have to do that.
But the annoying thing is I have to do that a lot because my hearing sucks. So, you could even be loud. I'd be like, oh, I don't know. What'd you say?
Why I'm sitting here, veins bulging out, shooting sweat out, and you're like, hey, Jen, why is Dave whispering?
What's going on here? Okay, so I think we're here for a reason. It has been, what has it been? Like a month, probably even longer, since the first time we were supposed to do this. This particular episode of the Pet Sematary nature by Stephen King, of course, has been canceled a record 3 times. And now it is no small feat that we're all together in the same room. As a matter of fact, I had to threaten that I would behead anyone who canceled.
Yeah.
And I think that you both actually wanted to cancel, but didn't want to lose your head. So
I got to be honest, it was a tough choice. It was a very tough choice.
Yes. But you know what?
I'm keeping my skull.
I got a lot of shit to do and I need my head for that. So, all right. That all being out of the way, how are we doing today? Of course, this is the the Stephen King trio of Dave Aguilar. How are you, Dave Aguilar?
I'm doing well, man. Doing well.
And,
excited to be doing this episode finally.
I am on the edge of my seat with this one. And Jen Ringler, what's going on?
Hello.
Hi. Jen was just at a magic show.
Wait, what? Was it a show about like Magic the Gathering, or was it an actual prestidigitator? You didn't know I knew that word.
The second one.
Oh, really?
I didn't know that word existed.
Oh, yeah. I made it up. No.
Ah, we are here to discuss the. So I guess the main focus will be the 1989 Pet Sematary movie, but Jen and I have also read the 1983 Stephen King book upon which the movie is based. I'll be describing the movie and maybe going off into some tangents about how the movie differs from the book or how the book mentions details that the movie doesn't mention. But I mean, I'm going by memory here. I had this whole big thing worked out about a month ago, and I'm reaching for the entrails of of that description because you would think that I would be smart enough to actually maybe watch the movie again, but no, that I couldn't be bothered. Um, so the movie is this the Creed family, which consists of Lewis Creed, Rachel Creed, Ellie, they call her, and Gage Creed, who is the little baby. Eileen, who is also known as Ellie through most of the book, is the older daughter. Gage is the younger son. He's 2 years old, and they move into this brand new house because uh what was it like? Lewis was having trouble with his placement in Chicago, so they needed to move out into the middle of nowhere. What they didn't know, because I guess it was never mentioned, is that there's like these ridiculous trucks that just zoom by at like 9,000 miles an hour on like a one lane road, just all hours of the day and through most of the night, as Judd, who will later show up, says. So they move into this house. Their neighbor from across the street comes in and immediately saves Gage's life from from getting
Yeah.
hit by a truck. Like seriously,
Wasted
like
no time.
wasted no time. And if Judd hadn't been there, literally their move-in day would have been the day that their son got hit by a truck and it got killed, and would have been
To be
incredible.
fair, if that had happened then, quite a lot of grief would have been prevented
Yeah.
because the family didn't know a bunch of stuff at the
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
right. If the truck had hit Gage the day that they moved in, because they're already not paying attention. They're like, oh, there's all these crazy trucks going zooming up and down the street. Let's let our 2-year-old wander into the street and turn our backs.
Mm.
Hopefully Herman Munster will come by and save his life, right? So,
Herman, hey, Herman Munster, one of the greatest TV dads of all time. So that
absolutely,
tracks.
yes.
That
You know what?
tracks.
And that's great. So we just had this setup thing. I want to say, the family was moving into this new house in the middle of nowhere in Maine. What was the name? Ludlow, Maine.
Yeah.
And yeah, they were like, "Yeah, we're moving to this house so that I can have a job." Ellie said, "Look, there's a path." Judd said, "I'll tell you about it someday. Not now." Sorry, the cat knows what I'm talking about.
That's why
And
the
and
cat's
he's
scared.
the
Don't
cat's like,
take me to the cemetery. Don't take
yes,
me to the
don't take me.
cemetery.
Don't bury me in that place, please. Please. Anyway, um, so the reason that they moved is because Lewis got this new job as a doctor at a school. So he goes in his first day. He's like, a runner got hit by a truck, by an Orinco truck. And while the runner, his name is Victor Pascal, he's on the table and he's like, Lewis is alone in the room with him. He sits up and he goes, uh the pet cemetery, like don't go past the pet cemetery, that's where the dead rest of the pet cemetery, and like the dead rise beyond the pet cemetery, something like that. And he goes, the soil of a man's heart is stonier, Lewis. Lewis says, how did you know my name? And he goes, I'll come for you. And he goes, how'd you know my name? It's like all this other crazy shit's happening, and the only thing that he's concerned about is how do you know my name? Right? So then he dies on the table. Lewis goes home. Nothing happened. Can't really be bothered. Right? And I think it was like right after that, Judd takes them to the pet cemetery. Um, and it's here that we find out that Rachel really has a problem talking about death, right? So Judd's saying like, "Oh, these animals they died here, and look at that. That's an old fish, and there's a fish that was buried. It's not always they don't always
I
get hit
love
by
that.
trucks. Yeah, like this.
It's a
There's a
fish.
fish. There's a fishy. Yeah. So Rachel, we don't know why just yet, but Rachel has this big problem with talking about death, and uh, Ellie really likes the pet cemetery. She thinks it's a cute idea, but then she gets to thinking about her own cat dying. And Lewis says, well, he might not die for a little while. And Ellie like freaks the fuck out, saying, well, it's up to God. And then Ellie says, yeah, but God can get his own cat and kill him. My cat is for me, whatever. And then this all happens, I think, before Lewis goes to the school and like meets Victor Pascal.
Yeah,
But
that
yeah,
conversation,
but
that's
yeah,
where
yeah,
he got mad at his
yeah,
wife
yeah.
because when the daughter asked, "Hey, is what was the cat's name?"
Church,
Church.
Winston
Church.
Churchill. That's a
Right. Is
yeah.
Church going to die? And the mother was and the mother basically cornered the father into promising he was going to be okay.
Hmm.
Which
And
by
then
the way, I would have lost my shit too if
oh
somebody
yeah,
cornered me like that in front of my kid because you know how it is, you never know.
like yeah, he goes like there's a 1 in 1,000 chance because the cat's supposed to get neutered, but he goes like there's a
Hmm.
1 in 1,000 chance that something bad's gonna happen when he's under, but if it does, you're the one who tells him. And then Rachel comes out and says, "Hey, I was on Star Trek. You need to forgive me." And he was like, "Yeah, okay, sure, whatever." So, so, so
Yeah, but she died there too.
well, all right, fine. Look, she gets a lot of chances to
For
die.
those who don't know, the actress who played the wife the mom, she
Mhm,
was also the actress who played Tasha Yar, who was head of
right.
security on Star Trek: The Next Generation, where she also died.
Denise Crosby.
Yes.
Yeah. At that point, before Lewis starts his first day at the new school, like everything is normal except for the fact that Rachel is like, don't talk about death. I can't. That's a terrible thing for a child to hear about. And Lewis is a doctor. He's like, listen, man, I'm a fucking doctor. Like, what? How can you possibly tell me to not talk about death? That's
Right.
so. Yeah, and then the scene where he meets Victor Pascal happens. He goes back home. He falls asleep. Victor Pascal comes to him in what he believes is a dream. So they take a little walk in the woods, and he goes, yeah, don't go beyond the pet cemetery. That's where the dead rise. You know, don't do that. Don't do it, Lewis. So they come back. Lewis wakes up. He's like, oh, it was all just a dream. He pulls the blanket off, and his feet are covered with mud and leaves, and they're like all the way up to his knees. I'm like, what the hell was he doing in those woods? Because when they were walking in the woods, that it
It
just
was
it
in a
just
woods, not in a swamp.
yeah, it just felt like they were just walking on some dry leaves. So, all right, I'm gonna break here for a second, and I'm gonna ask because this always did kind of puzzle me a little bit. When Pascal got up and said, don't go beyond the pet cemetery when he was on the doctor's table before he was officially dead. What the hell was going on with that? Like was that something that actually happened? Was it the spirits, the Wendigo, who wasn't even in the movie, taking over already? What do you think, Jen? What do you think about that?
Yeah,
Was
yeah.
was that like because obviously King seems to have made it unclear on purpose in both the movie and the book, but it's like, do you think that was actually Pascal, or was that the like spirit taking over? I don't know. Like,
Right.
what are your
It's a good
thoughts on
question.
this? Yeah.
So in Stephen King books, you always have to try to figure out if the thing that is happening is really happening within the story. Like you suspend your disbelief and think, is this really happening? Or is the character imagining it, hallucinating it, et cetera, et
Mm,
cetera, et cetera? Like short tangent. In The Shining, for a long time, one of my questions was, is a lot of the scary stuff that happens in that book real, quote, in quotation marks, within the context of the story, or is it Jack's hallucination because he's going mentally insane, he has alcoholism, blah, 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 blah.
hmm
And so I kind of have the same question here to an extent, is what is Pascal kind of coming to life on the table and talking to Lewis real? Did that really happen, within the confines of the story?
Mm.
Or is Lewis cracking up, cracking under pressure, freaking out about the conversation about the pet cemetery, all of that? And I don't know the answer. And bigger question to add to your question, John, is why this Pascal thing at all? What is the connection between this dead college kid,
Yeah.
Pascal, and this whole pet cemetery thing? Is
Yeah.
it only a vehicle of writing because the main character needed some kind of guide, some kind of foreshadowing? We
Hmm.
needed something to warn, like how and why is Pascal is kind of my question.
Hmm.
That's a really interesting, I didn't think about that when I was watching the movie because actually that's not true. I did wonder like what's he there for?
Yeah.
I did wonder that. I
Yeah,
did
Yeah.
wonder
I think
that. What's
it's
the point? What is his purpose
right.
in being in the narrative? And I think it's probably more exposition
Yeah.
because he can say things and show don't tell, right? So they just work in details as part of his conversation and the things he says. But the reality is, where'd he come from? That's a really good question. Is
Yeah.
it the Wendigo or the spirit or whatever from the what the soil is spoiled? What was it?
The
The
soil of
spo-
a man's
The
heart is
sour.
stonier.
sour.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
And the
sour
ground the
soil.
ground is
The
sour.
ground
Yeah,
is
I
The
was
sour.
ground is
looking up
sour. Yeah.
I was looking up quotes and it was it's the place where the dead talk
That's
is
the one.
what
Yeah.
you were
Where the
looking for.
talk, right.
The first part of that part where I think Pascal says is it's the place where the dead talk. The longer quote we're looking at is the soil of a man's heart is stonier, Lewis. A man grows what he can and tends it, because what you buy is what you own,
Hmm.
and what you own always comes home to you.
But that's
So,
that's that's what Judd said, right? That wasn't the Pascal
right.
line, right? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I don't know, John, what do you think about those questions about Pascal?
Well, it's a question that I have asked myself a lot because, first of all, I don't understand his role. Like everyone, I'm sure it's like a very common thing that people are saying, like, what is his role in this story? Because he was in the book, he was in the movie, and at least in the book, they were able to make it so that he blended in with the story. In the movie, he just felt completely wedged in. It felt like there was no reason for that character to be there because first of all, he issued these warnings, right? He's like, don't go beyond the pet cemetery. And yet, and I'm jumping ahead here, when Judd brings Lewis to the pet cemetery, Pascal's nowhere to be found. Like, hey, what the hell? So, what's up, Dave? Yeah.
I had a thought about that, about this whole issue. Something just occurred to me. So, Stephen King is a very good writer. However,
Hmm.
turning things into movies is often a challenge,
Right.
right? So, this guy, this student, his role, and I didn't read the novel, but I did read about a third of it. So I
Okay.
started a long time and things happened. And for whatever reason, I ended up not finishing. And I still intend to go back to it because it was very good what I started. And I remember that he took up less space in the overall narrative in the
Right.
book that I remember.
Yeah.
So, I think this is cumbersome, I don't know, clumsy filmmaking.
I agree.
Like
Yeah.
there was other ways. There's probably, and I'm not pretending, look, I'm not a filmmaker, but I know as a writer, because I do, I write stories, you're trying to work in these details that you need the reader to know or the viewer to know in a movie. So how do you get them in there? And there's a lot of different ways
Hmm.
that filmmakers take, right? I think we've talked about it on this podcast or one of your podcasts before. Like, if you want to make it known, you don't say they're in Mexico. What you do is you play the music and then you film everything in
Mm-hmm.
sepia because
There you
everything
go.
in Mexico
Mexico
is
is
in
sepia.
sepia. If you want to show you're in France, you're in Paris, you pay the squeeze box music and you put
Right.
everybody in front of the Eiffel Tower. So now everybody,
Yeah, give somebody a baguette and let them walk down the
exactly.
street.
So
Yeah.
Right.
so
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
there's all these techniques that you use, and I think they just didn't do a good job of translating the messages that in the novel this kid was giving into the book, because sometimes you have to do something totally different than what's in the book. So
Yeah.
if you watch good versions of movie versions of good books, a lot of times you're like, so for example, a huge Lord of the Rings fan. I started rereading it again this year. I don't know how many times, and I love the movies. There was things that were significantly changed, but I still looked at it and go, yeah, but it makes sense why they changed it.
Hmm.
They took this out because, dude, the movie's total was like 13 hours. They got to cut some shit out,
Yeah. I
Yeah.
and they
mean,
got to. So there's a reason for it. And I just don't think they handled it well making this movie.
I
Yeah.
think if it were any other writer, I would say that Pascal was simply a vehicle to move the plot forward and get things done. Because in the book, he kind of has his opening scene that John has described where he dies and then sits up on the table and says some scary shit. And then we don't see him or think about him again until later when the wife is trying to prevent some things from happening and she's rushing
Mm.
back home to her husband because she has a bad feeling and there's some stuff going on. And Pascal sort of comes in her child's dream and like speaks to her when she's on the road and becomes almost like a good angel on the shoulder trying to save the family and trying to
Right.
do right. And so if it were any other writer besides Stephen King, I would say that Pascal exists only as a vehicle to make that stuff happen. But because he's Stephen King and he's so good at what he does and everything is done for a reason, I know there's more to it than that. I just don't know what it is because I'm not as smart as Stephen King.
So what
But you're
I
benefiting from his work even without necessarily understanding parts of it.
Always, always.
100%. I mean, look at what we're doing here. This
Mhm.
is this is a great benefit to Stephen King's work. We get to talk about Stephen King. So,
I'm not against it.
yeah, I mean, so I don't want to spend too much time on Pascal, but and that's what she said. Uh
Hey,
I hey so
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I couldn't help myself.
yeah, but I would say, like I said, Pascal was good in the book. He was like sprinkled in, and oh, he's reminding me of this, and like, oh, this is like a Pascal spirit, and he's telling me. But like in the book, I feel like he was less prominent than he was in the movie. In the movie, he just kind of randomly showed up and said, "Yeah, don't do that." And then he showed up at the end of the movie to help Rachel, and like he had a seat on the airplane. And I'm like, okay, did you need to get a ticket? Or like, I don't understand. Like, so yeah, to me, Pascal. I mean, I'll talk about my overall thoughts of the movie a little bit later. To me, the movie as a whole, I wasn't all that impressed by, but um, we'll talk about, like how they translated the book into the movie because it was the 80s and it was cheesy and it was like a cheesy Stephen King horror movie. And as we know, any horror movie that was made in the 80s by law has to be cheesy.
Oh
So,
yeah, yeah. It's a
yes.
very dated. It's absolutely one of
Yes.
those movies that you look at and you go, that did not hold up well. There's other horror movies that you can
So,
say that this movie I don't think
mm,
aged well.
nah.
Not for the reasons of other movies, culturally inappropriate things or yada
Mm,
yada. It's just because it was a little. There was plenty in the movie that was hokey. There was plenty I liked about it,
yeah.
but there was plenty that was hokey.
So that being said, Pascal was a predictor of things to come. Because why is he warning Lewis about the pet cemetery, about the Indian burial ground when nothing has even happened yet? So he knew something was going to happen.
Yeah,
Um,
it's
right,
foreshadowing.
right, right. He's basically warning, hey, if you put them in the ground, it'll come back, sure, but it won't be what you were expecting. Like you're going to be disappointed, Dave.
I think one of the things, and again, going back to things that Stephen King does, um, you knew very early on in the story, because I remember this part. Like I said, I read about a quarter, maybe a third of the book.
Mm,
Very early on, you get that tone. Something ain't right.
I'm not
Something
something
ain't
good.
right.
Nah.
And he's, you don't know what it is, but there's something ain't right there. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
even in like, this is one of the reasons I think, even though Stephen King hated the movie The Shining, the one that was made by Stanley Kubrick, one of the brilliant things that I think Stanley Kubrick did was from the opening credits,
Hmm.
something ain't right.
Yeah.
Right? Just a helicopter tracking the Torrance family in their car and that goddamn song from
Ugh.
the opening credits. You knew
Well,
something was wrong. And King did that in this story too.
yes. But at least the movie followed the story, Pet Cemetery.
Yes.
In the Shining movie, it was like, what the fuck are you doing to this story? This is for shock value and for nothing else, it seemed.
Yeah,
Anyway,
we'll have to do a Shining podcast
yeah,
in the
Yeah.
future.
I would
Yeah.
love to do a Shining podcast. Uh, but for now, moving right along, the Rachel and Ellie and Gage, they all pack their bags and they go to Chicago to visit Rachel's parents, who are the just like we need someone Jewish in this story. So Rachel's parents, perfect. Yeah, there it is.
What
Jen,
is the reason they go to Rachel's parents the first time?
the first time they're just there for Thanksgiving.
Oh,
Rachel,
and he stays
yeah,
back because he just
yeah.
got a new job and couldn't get away. Okay, that's right. I remember.
Uh, he no,
Sort of.
Rachel wanted Lewis to go. Lewis said,
Your father
your
hates me.
father hates me,
Yeah.
and so I'm not going."
I'm
But
going
it's
to
a
stay here and get
right,
shit together
right,
since we just
exactly,
moved here.
yes,
Time is better served
right.
that way.
Yeah.
It's a good thing though because while the family was away, good timing. That's when Church gets hit by a truck.
I'm going to
Church.
disagree with you. If the kids were home and the mom was
Mm.
home, they would have just dealt with it, buried the fucking cat, and all of them would have survived.
Yes. And none
And,
of us would be here having this conversation.
Right.
and then the book goes from being 400 pages to being 50
Two.
pages.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
All right. It's like they decided to stay home for Thanksgiving. Church got hit by a truck. Ellie cried. Lewis comforted her. The end.
Worked
All
great
right.
for them. Didn't help
Yes.
us any.
Right,
Yeah.
right, right.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's no book here. So anyway, so Judd calls Lewis and he's like, "Hey, you got yourself a spot of trouble here. Your cat seems to be dead on my lawn." So I just want to do the
That's pretty good.
I
Like
want to do
that's really good.
I want to do the Judd voice. That's really that's the reason I wanted to do this podcast so I could do the
Have
Judd
you been
voice.
practicing this? Because I'm going to say that wasn't bad. That
I
wasn't bad at all.
I mean, I listened to the book on tape with the guy who played Dexter, and the voice that he gave to Judd, like that just it drills into your face. Like every time he goes into Judd, I'm like, "Oh my God, I want Judd to narrate the Pet Cemetery book."
Yeah, Dave. Michael C. Hall, if for those who
That's
don't know,
yes.
Michael C. Hall, who is Dexter, is the narrator of the audiobook of Pet
Oh,
Sematary.
okay. All right.
Correct.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yes.
It threw me when I first started it. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, that's Dexter. What's happening?
Yes.
Yeah.
So Judd says, "Hey, what are you gonna do with the cat?" Lewis says, "I don't know. I guess I'll put him in the garage and bury him in the morning. See, that's a man with a plan." Judd says, "No, you're coming with me." And so, and what I love about this part in the book, it's a lot more detailed.
Yeah.
Where Lewis is like, "What are you talking about? Like it's the middle of the night. I'm not going to trek up this stupid hill." But Judd keeps saying, "No, no, no, come on, you're gonna do this." And Lewis is like, all right, I guess I'll risk breaking my neck because my neighbor said that I should." Um, so the book version of this trek is like it seems to never end. It just goes on and on and on. And the deeper they get into the woods past the pet cemetery, the more eerie it becomes, the more just like I guess disconnected with reality it becomes. Like time gets warped and all that bullshit. And it's like the spirits are trying to stop us from going, but we must trek on. In the movie, it's like it's a challenging hike, you
It's
know?
physically
So,
challenging. It's
right.
just because it's a
Yeah,
hard climb and it's dark.
right. Now they go and they get to the pet cemetery, the Indian burial ground, and Judd says, you got to bury it yourself because, we all bury our own. I'm going to go over there, have a smoke. Okay, wonderful. You do it. Now, they
So
get,
let's just to interrupt you for a second. So they go, just to clarify for folks,
yes.
he follows Judd to the pet cemetery and then follows him up and over a big stack of branches and trees to
Hmm.
what's beyond the pet cemetery,
What's
which
beyond the pet cemetery?
and
Yeah.
and there's this kind of denial or willingness to follow in Lewis in both the book and the movie. He doesn't ask enough questions. He's not
Hmm.
saying like, well, why do we have to go bury the cat in the middle of the night? Can't we bury him tomorrow? And he's not asking, why are we scrambling over these branches past where you showed my family and I where the pets are buried? And
Yeah.
why that he just sort of like fucking rolls with it. And like
Yeah.
if some dude I met twice started hauling me through the woods in the middle of the night and I didn't know why, like I might have some questions.
But you had a beer with him.
Right.
You should. But in the book, correct me if I'm, and I could
Yeah.
be totally off because I started reading that book. I never finished it, and it was a couple of years ago.
Hmm.
There wasn't just like 2 days, was it? Like they got to know each other over
No,
time.
it was a while, and I feel like even the book kind of like just
But they knew
described,
each other a
yeah,
month or two before
right.
they did that.
Maybe, yeah, maybe it
It's
was some
what it
distance, but I still might have questions.
what it
Like,
was. I believe they said that they moved into the house in like July or August, and
and this
then
was
this was
Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving. So yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
um,
Okay. I
right.
stand corrected.
No, you're fine. I mean, the you st I still don't know
It's
the
still
guy very
new.
well.
You don't know
Yeah,
him that well, you know, like
listen,
Right.
listen.
It just, I
I'm
don't know. I feel
yeah,
like Lewis has this, I don't know if it's a denial thing or what, but he
yeah.
chooses to not ask any questions and just kind of
Hmm.
roll
so
with it.
I
Right.
think with Lewis, he's struggling because what the hell was the kid's name? The runner who died. We've been talking about
Pascal. Pascal.
Pascal.
Yeah.
I think at that point he's kind of been knocked off. How do knocked off his horse for a bit.
Yeah.
Not I don't say high horse
Right,
like
but
he's
he's
stuck up,
rattled. He's
but I
rattled.
got my good career.
He's rattled.
He's
Yeah.
That's the word I'm looking for. He's rattled. He's having these visit. He's a man of science, and all of a sudden he sees a goddamn ghost. The dead gets up, starts talking to him, wakes up at night, and his shoes are covered in mud. I think he's rattled, and it's not the normal Lewis.
Yeah.
Because I think, the normal Lewis is a family guy. He's a decent guy. We know him better in the book than you get to know him in the movie,
Hmm.
right? But he's a good dude. But I think he's rattled and he's already slipping into, if this were the movie Stranger Things,
Yeah.
he would be slipping into the upside down,
Oh yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Um.
and he's there or partly there already because of those other instances with Pascal.
Yeah. 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 For sure. Um. Now, here's the part that baffled me. The reason that I'm bringing the book version of the journey through the woods and the forest and all the craziness, where reality gets distorted and like it's a very disquieting quiet, because they're like it's unnaturally quiet, things blah 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 blah. And like the farther they go, the more pushback there is against them in the book. And now finally they get to the Micmac burial ground. They bury the cat, and later, not the cat. Uh, the whole idea here is that we're supposed to say later on Judd was compelled by the Wendigo to bring Lewis into the situation, show Lewis the Micmac burial ground because the Wendigo knew that he was going to kill Gage later on. Why is it then that this place is so difficult to access? You would think that because this Wendigo is trying to compel them to go there, go, 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 and like you think you have free will, but you really don't have free will. You would think that the path would be easier to get through, that it wouldn't be that, maybe it would be like a little secret thing to make them feel like, oh, we discovered something that other people don't know about. But no, like they make it seem like it's virtually impossible to get there unless you know how to get there without killing yourself. So
Right.
this is just my interpretation, and obviously it's Stephen King, so it's not going to be like, yes, we walked through the woods for 10 minutes and here's the burial ground. So, they
Right.
had to,
If it
yeah,
were like
yeah,
right in the front yard or something, then so many more pets and other things would have been buried there over there. You know what I mean? I think that
yeah,
if it were easy to access, um, the whole world of mess
yeah.
would have opened. You know what I mean? Like everybody,
Hmm.
every sad kid who with a dead cat would be going through the same situation, and it would just be a
Yeah,
mess.
Yeah. And you know what? Now that on thinking about this, a very good question, John.
yeah.
On thinking about that, it would make sense. So this thing is an ancient thing. It's not new. It is a from the Micmac Indians, as they call it.
Hmm.
So it's been there for a very long time, and it was abandoned by them because they were like, "This place is terrible." So I think it makes sense in the language of mythology and fantasy that it has to be far away.
Hmm.
You wouldn't think about it. The ground is sour. The ground is sour.
Yep.
Nobody's going to build there. Nobody's going to put a house. Nobody could put a plot to raise. The Native Americans weren't going to plant maize up on that, right? I love
Well,
saying maize because we all learned that in grammar school, and
yeah.
now we're experts on American Indian history.
Oh yeah.
Well,
I
that's
w-
two five-star words today. What was your other one? Pridges something-ator?
Prestidigitation.
Yeah.
prestidigitation, yes.
Yes.
Well,
Mm.
so listen,
Mm.
I want to see them bury dead plants in the Micmac burial ground because I really am curious to see how those come back.
Have you
Like
said
You
they
know,
all come back like the guy from
is,
fucking
is,
Feed Me Seymour? What's the
is
plane?
Audrey too?
Audrey too. They all turn into a man-eating plant.
I
Is
can't.
it? It's. I thought it would be more like Plants versus Zombies. Like this is where it originated. So, so
By the
anyway,
way, when
yes.
you said like, oh, if it was on the front lawn, it would give a whole new meaning to like an old guy like Judd yelling at the kids, "Get off my
Get
lawn!"
off my lawn,
Oh,
you
why am
damn
I going to
kids!
ruin your flowers? No, you're all going to die. You're
Right.
all
You're
going to
gonna
die.
raise the dead.
I cannot get enough of John's Judd impression. But
Yeah,
I think, you bring up something interesting though with the Wendigo because I chose to ignore that part of the book and the movie in the sense of I didn't think about how the Wendigo played a role in any of this. It was just something that was sort of mentioned once and never really brought up again. But there's a parallel there to the book and the movie It, where the evil force behind all of the bad things that is happening is an otherworldly, supernatural being that sort of creates an evil that permeates the town and the people in it. And that's a kind of a Stephen King theme. Like he does the same thing in it. And so
there's
I
something
mean
wrong
it's
in
worth
Derry.
it's worth thinking about because I really haven't given any thought to the Wendigo. I just sort of they mentioned it, old scary lore, and then that was
Yeah.
it.
So the way that it kind of strikes me is that there's a lot of like I don't want to use this word, but I'm going to use it anyway. There's a lot of seduction going on where um like you have a dead cat. Judd knows that if we bury it in the Micmac burial ground, the cat will come back. Um, which in turn makes Lewis aware of the Micmac burial ground. And, we all say, like, okay, we know this is a bad idea. That we know nothing good can come of this, and yet you cannot help yourself. You know,
Yeah.
and so I see it more so as seduction under the guise of free will, but like you really aren't you're not controlling what you're doing. You're being pulled and you're being like, "Hey, you know what? You do this thing. Oh, okay, I'll do it." So, and that's why in a sense that's kind of why Lewis didn't really ask any questions about it. He wasn't like, "What the hell do you know? I'm not going to break my neck going up that thing." He was like, all right, yeah, I'll give it a shot." And when he fell the first time in the book, uh he got up and he tried again because it's like, what do you do when you fall off of a tree? You climb up immediately after and make sure you so it's like no. So anyway, they get back from their long journey. Lewis buries the cat in a I think he said it was a green garbage bag. Uh Judd says, not a word about what we done here. Lewis says, what did we do here? And he goes, we buried
Hey,
your
and it's
dog.
like now you have
Yeah.
questions?
Yeah. Right. He's like completely freaked out after it's done. Like
Yeah.
all the rest of the time it's like yeah, all right, I'll go with you. Yeah, why not? He's like, wait a minute.
Jen, you guys have been talking about something, and my brain is making connections, and they're probably all wrong, and they're going to short circuit. But um, I was thinking about something because I know Lord of the Rings was an influence on Stephen King,
Oh,
right?
I
So
think
Oh, I'm
Lord of the
sure.
Rings,
sure.
well,
Yeah.
he said it. He goes like Dark Tower, that's my version of Lord of the
Oh,
Rings.
yeah.
But I
Yeah.
had to wait 10 or 15 years after I read Lord of the Rings because if
Mm,
not, it would have just been a knockoff of Lord of the Rings.
Lord of the Rings, yeah.
But it was an influence. So one of the great things I've always thought that Tolkien did that was goddamn brilliant in the Lord of the Rings trilogy is you don't see Sauron. You don't see the big bad, right? There's a scene where they're looking into the magic Palantir stone. If you've read it, you know that's like a seeing
Yeah.
into the distance kind of thing. It's a magic tool. You see a robed figure. That's it. That's all you see. You don't see magic. Like he's not like Voldemort. He doesn't shoot bolts of energy at his enemies. What he does is he bends the will of
Mm-hmm.
people,
Yeah.
right? He doesn't have to show up. He's going to make you show up for him. That's how he works. And why not have the big bad in it? I mean, well, also it, but Pet Cemetery and others. Why
In Pet
wouldn't
Sematary, in the Dark Tower. Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
Why wouldn't you have this similar thing of he's finding your weakness and exploiting it?
Yeah.
Because that's what Sauron did, right? He exploited the weakness and he bent your will to match his.
Yeah. What's the big bad in the Dark Tower is the Crimson King.
Right.
Same thing.
And
Yeah.
how often do you see him?
Yeah.
You don't,
Mm,
right? Not
yeah.
until the very, very end, if I recall. So
Yeah.
you see his emissaries, you see his minions, the people who he's already bent their will. So why not be like he's bending the will of Judd, Lewis's will, these
Yep.
other people,
He's
you
bending
know?
his will through Judd,
Right.
which I find really, really interesting. So anyway, so they get back and Lewis is outside. They're still, I guess, they're still in Chicago. Oh yeah, he makes a phone call with his family. He's, he's like, oh, I'm not gonna tell Ellie that the cat died just yet. You know, I buried the cat. He's gonna come back, but I don't know that yet.
Yeah.
So, they say, oh yeah, I'm comforted talking to my family. Yeah, I want to talk to Gage. Yeah, hi, Daddy, I love you. Like it was, definitely like a heart jerker kind of deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, all right,
Sweet,
yeah.
sweet family moment for sure.
Yeah. Where it's like, oh, this is the calm before the storm because once I tell Ellie what happened to her cat, all hell is gonna break loose. But I'm gonna enjoy this moment for right now. So Lewis is out in his yard, literally raking like two leaves. He rakes up two leaves and he puts the rake in the garage. He's like, okay, I'm done. Like, all right. So
Because in November in New England, there's no leaves. That never happens.
I mean, I don't know. Like whatever the leaf situation is, he was outside
Right.
raking leaves, and like this always bothered me. I've seen this movie like 3, 4 times now. They show him raking. There's leaves all over the place. He rakes. He scoops like 3 times. And he's like, okay, that's a hard day's work done. He puts the rake away. I'm like, okay. So 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 he goes into the garage and there's Church, but his eyes are like bright yellow and he's hissing and mean. Now, here's another major difference between the book and the movie. In the movie, Church was mean. He was evil. He was very obviously not a friendly cat. In the book, they use, and it's actually quite remarkable how Stephen King was able to use uncanny. This is what they. It's a psychological thing. It's called uncanny valley.
Oh yeah,
Where
yeah,
yeah, where for those of you who don't know what that is, it's like something is almost like a living being, something is almost like what you recognize, but not quite. So when Church came back in the book, he didn't hiss at him. He was just there looking at him with dead eyes, you know, muddy eyes. And Lewis saw him and freaked the fuck out. The cat was just quiet. But, he was like, what the fuck? Buried my cat alive. And he was saying like his fur was greasy and he was saying like he had like a really like stumbly way of walking and it was like the body was moving, and these are my words. Like the body was moving, but there was no one controlling the brain. So it
hmm
was just sort of like it
Yeah,
was
like an animatronic cat at that point.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it was like a resurrected cat. And this to me, now I'm taking a slight tangent here. That resurrected cat freaked me out way more than resurrected Gage or resurrected Timmy Baterman in Lewis's story, just because it's a freaking cat, you know?
right,
And cats are supposed to either be moody or sweet or whatever, and this cat in the book was just weight. You know, it was like picking up a
right,
bag,
right.
it was like picking up a bag of sand. Yeah. So yeah, the book version was a lot creepier than the movie version, which was just a mean cat,
Yeah, yeah,
hissing. So the cat comes back. Things are starting to come into view. He says to Judd, like, what the hell happened? Then Judd tells the story of the Micmac burial ground. The ground went sour, but, I brought Ellie's cat back because she wasn't ready to say goodbye yet, right? So they're sitting I think it was Judd's table. They're sitting at Judd's table having a beer. Lewis says, "Has anyone ever buried a person up there?" And I don't know what I mean. I know that Fred Gwynn is a big dude, but like his response to that question was like he swung his arm. He's like, "Whoa!" Like knocked over like three beer bottles onto the floor, and he said literally one of my favorite lines, both in the book and the movie: "Christ on his throne, no." And
There are a lot of those Christ reference exclamations. Like another one I love is
yeah,
Jesus Christ on a cracker. That's
Jesus,
another one I've heard that I think is fantastic.
Yeah, not that one's not Stephen King.
that's not
Yeah, yeah.
Stephen
No, it's
King.
not
No,
Stephen King, but I love the expression.
right?
Yeah, no. Over the years, John, I've been reading Stephen King for
Uh-huh.
32 years, maybe.
Okay.
And I think that Stephen King has some incredible one-liners and catchphrases. And if I could write them all down, there's so many things like that I hear, and I'm like, man, I have to find a way to work that into my daily vocabulary. And I never do.
Right.
But yeah, no, he has
Right.
a lot of good ones.
Yeah, so he's like, "Oh, Christ on his throne, no." And when I was listening to the audiobook, um, I and that he said, "Has anyone ever buried a person up there?" I thought that they made that line for the movie, but no, it was taken right from the book. He said, "Christ on his throne, no." So it's like, "And ho, I'm a wood." And I'm like, "Damn it, okay." Look, we find out later, of course, that that's a lie, and I guess that's why he got so flustered about it. So anyway,
I
whatever
mean, and
this
it's foreshadowing. It's
yeah, yeah, for
they
sure.
stick it he
Of
sticks it in
course.
there for foreshadowing
Right,
to
right,
like
of course.
start to plant the idea of
Mm,
burying a person there in the reader's mind. And the
yeah.
reason that Judd freaks out about it is because he is
PTSD.
this,
Mm,
yeah, he's this old man who's seen a lot of bad things happen, and he does not want to open that Pandora's box again.
no.
Yet, he's the one who led Lewis to the burial ground in the first place.
Judd is one of the most I want to punch you characters I've ever encountered in a movie or a TV show or a book or a short story that I've ever encountered. Like
Mm-hmm.
literally, because first of all, I actually loved Fred Gwynn's performance. It's
Yeah.
between like seeing that and My Cousin Vinny, and I often wonder what would have, because he has such gravitas. Like when
Hmm.
he's on the screen, it's the only thing you see. There's
Oh
certain
yeah.
actors that are like that, like Lawrence Fishburne. Lawrence Fishburne, I don't give a shit what's happening on the screen. You look at him, right?
Cowboy Curtis.
I was saying about Fred Gwynn, like he was a great, I loved his performance. I just loved watching him on the screen. And I always wonder what, if he hadn't been typecast as Herman Munster, what
Yeah.
else could he have done in his career? Because that, I think that role kind of typecast him for, and limited his options in the future because it was so memorable. But
Yeah.
so I loved his performance. But you know, he knows what happens. He's the one that said, sometimes dead is better. He knew this, and he still put the cat in the Micmac burial ground
Yeah.
and put the idea that you could bring a person back in his head, in Lewis's head. And I
Right.
don't understand what compelled him, other than maybe, like we were talking about earlier, the Wendigo was using him, bending
Hmm.
his will without him realizing it, because I
Yeah.
cannot follow a sense of logic at all to what happened.
Yeah, no, it seems that that is like what happened, like bar none, that there's, because Judd is a good person. Judd
Absolutely.
Judd doesn't it's as little as we know about him, it's out of character that he would have said, "Hey, let's bury your cat in the Micmac burial ground."
Right.
So, yeah. Um, yeah, I would say that the answer is fairly obvious that he was definitely compelled to do that. And yeah. So do I even need to bring up Missy the maid who hangs herself, and then they have a funeral where Stephen King is the funeral
Pastor.
the pastor.
Yeah.
I was gonna say the funeral giver, but pastor is a better word.
Do you give a funeral?
It's like, hey, I'm going to invite you to my funeral. And anyway,
Yeah,
it's
for a long time he had cameos in
yeah,
many of his movies.
a la Alfred Hitchcock.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, and I feel like that's probably like a send off to Hitchcock the way he did that, which was a pretty cool thing that he did. Um, Yeah, but I guess it was at that point where Judd tells Lewis that, yeah, no, the cat's yours. You buried him. And it's like, well, thanks for not telling me anything. I thought it was Ellie's cat, but no, it's it's my cat, my zombie freaky weird cat who I hate. So, a little bit of time goes by. They're having a picnic in the I don't even which area is this? Was this like someone's backyard? Was this I don't know where this was because
I
I
think
feel
it was
like it
supposed to
was,
be their house.
was it
yeah, I
there?
feel like it
Yeah.
was Lewis and wife's backyard. And then because
Yeah.
the little boy runs from the backyard into their front
Backyard.
yard.
We have a hard time with this, John, because we're
Yeah.
from New York Metro. We
Yeah.
don't we're not used to people owning that, like they're like, hey, you have a house and here's your 2 acres. We don't know what that looks like.
Yeah.
Because here that's a $30 billion property,
Right, right, right.
It's
But yeah, it
different.
has to be their backyard because he runs into the front yard and then Judd's house is across the street. So yeah.
Okay.
Good point. Yeah.
So, I mean, they're flying a kite, they're having a good time. There's obviously an intentional juxtaposition of what's happening and what is about to happen. Now, um, Gage starts running, and this backyard is enormous. Like you said, it's like 200 acres or something absurd like that. And they're all talking. Suddenly, Judd looks up. Now, Judd is facing Gage, right? And all of a sudden, he's like, "Oh, go get your boy. He's running toward the road." So Lewis runs toward Gage at top speed and is not able to catch him. It's like, first of all, how the fuck long were you looking away from this child?
Look
And
at the size of the kid's legs. How much
yeah,
ground could he have covered?
how much ground could he have covered where Lewis, a grown man, is not able to catch up to him by sprinting, and he lost, like, stopped paying attention to him for long enough that he was able to get to that point, right? So anyway, Lara just texted me, "Can you stop yelling?" Um, I told you there is no there's I'm a Jew. Jews are normally, they haggle and they
A
speak
boisterous people.
right, yeah.
A
So
boisterous people.
so so anyway, yeah. Long
I'm home
story,
alone. I can shout as much as I want.
right, exactly. So long story short, uh Gage gets hit by the Orinco truck by the guy who is listening to Sheena is a punk rocker and uh, in his truck. Now, I don't exactly remember the scene here, but did the truck get like severely damaged from hitting a 2-year-old child? Uh, does anyone remember?
I don't think they really show
Uh,
the answer to that question at all. I don't think they address that.
maybe not. Okay. Well,
I think the truck ended up on its side. Why do I have that memory in my head?
that happened in the 2019 remake.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
How many remakes were there? Because
there was only one remake.
there was
And
the original 80s
yeah,
something movie, then there was a remake, and then was there like a
it
sequel
was
to the remake
It was
or
a
some
pr-
shit?
it was a prequel. It was like a focus on the Timmy Baterman story.
Yes,
It
I
took
watched
place
that.
in
I
the
Oh.
remember that.
yeah. So yeah. So Gage dies. They flash a few pictures, and now we're at Gage's funeral, where um Rachel's father just trash talks the shit out of Lewis and punches him at his own child's funeral. And amazingly, Lewis didn't punch back. Now, in the book, Lewis was the one to punch first after after Mr. Goldman. What was his name? Anyone remember what his first name was?
No,
I don't know.
I don't remember.
I'll call him Mr. Goldman. So, Mr. Goldman was like talking and talking and talking and talking more and more and more and more shit to Lewis about how, like, oh, like, I always knew you were a worthless pile of crap and blah 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 blah, until Lewis punched him in the face. In the movie, Mr. Goldman punches Lewis and Lewis
Yeah.
doesn't. Hmm?
Chat GPT says his first name was Irwin.
Irwin, that's it. Okay, Irwin. Right. Um, so Irwin punches Lewis in the movie and Lewis doesn't punch back, which I find to be much more satisfying of a situation because, you know, it just, it paints Irwin as a complete fucking asshole, piece of shit, dipshit, rather than, him uh provoking Lewis to punch him and then trying to make Lewis look like an asshole for punching him. So anyway, yeah, it's all hell breaks loose at the funeral. We see Gage's little hand come out of the coffin, which is, God, so disturbing, even though we know it's not a real child's hand. It
Also,
is
also foreshadowing.
also, yeah, right. Also
Right.
When you're
foreshadowing.
seeing a
Yes,
little
yes.
bit of the dead person's, the dead body, it's a little bit more foreshadowing.
hmm As much as I would love to go straight to the part where Lewis digs up Gage's body and brings him to the Micmac burial ground, we do have to make a brief pit stop at Judd's house, where Judd says, I guess no, this is at Lewis's house. Judd says, when I told you no one ever buried a person out there, it wasn't entirely true. So this was the moment where Judd says sometimes dead is better, and he
Hmm.
tells the whole story about Timmy Baterman, where Bill Baterman's son Timmy went to war and he got killed in battle, sent back for the funeral. Bill Baterman went to bury Timmy Baterman in the Micmac burial ground. Again, a subtle difference, or major difference, should I say. The resurrected Timmy Baterman in the book somehow knew everyone's secrets and was just spreading them around, like telling everyone like all the affairs and all the horrible things that people were doing that like no one could have possibly known. So again, the Wendigo,
The Wendigo,
yeah,
right?
knew it, right? Um, in the movie, he was just a very, very unsettling undead person who never
Like a
talked,
zombie.
who never talked. He was basically a zombie, yeah.
Yeah.
And so they were showing him like doing these weird things where he was like scratching the bottom of his face and like digging holes in the front yard. And I'd just be like, damn, man, I don't want that. That's not just no, it's just not something that I want. So
Another time when somebody leans out the window, goes, "Get off my
get
lawn!
off my
Not
lawn, you
digging
damn kid.
holes."
So, so
Freaking old people with the lawn. Ugh.
so he tells the story about how they had to like this some lady figured out that he was an abomination. He called it. He knew it was an abomination. So Judd and a bunch of townsfolk trapped them in their house and burned the house down
Yeah.
because obviously that's the best solution. You can't just kill the zombie. You have to burn the house down. Um, but I guess another foreshadowing, as Jen likes to point out.
Hmm.
So, um, so yeah, that's the story. And he's like, well, as we know, sometimes dead is better. So Lewis hears this story, considers it for about 5 seconds, decides to dig up Gage anyway. So he goes into the funeral
Which is
home.
this is like a moment of poor judgment among
Right,
many.
right.
But like he already saw what shape the cat was brought back out in,
Uh-huh.
and all in the book there's, they talk about how the cat is like everybody feels disgusted around him, and like
Yeah.
Ellie doesn't want to sleep with him anymore because he fucking stinks, and
Yeah.
Yep.
like we have this whole impression of, we know that this cat was not bought back in a state that we enjoy him in.
Right.
And yet, here we
And
are.
yet, here
And
we
this
are.
is,
And
but the thing is like, remember I said, there's never like, there's very few characters I ever wanted to punch in the face as much as I wanted to punch Judd in the face
yeah,
because, dude, you know better.
you know better.
Right. You know better.
Hmm.
You sat through this. You were there. You know what happens. With Lewis bringing Gage there, I get it.
Hmm.
That's despair.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
That's hopelessness. That's different. I understood him.
well, here's the thing. Now, you know, Judd says, I get it because grief makes a person do like really crazy things, like desperate things. I don't think grief probably played a small part in it, but I don't think it played most of the role of why Lewis went ahead and buried Gage in the Micmac burial ground. That was a seduction. That was the Wendigo. Yes, the Wendigo played on Lewis's grief, but
Yes.
I
That's what
think
I said
yeah.
about before with
Mhm.
Sauron. He exploits your weakness.
Right.
Right, right, right.
Yeah.
These are the outside forces that are driving these characters.
Yeah.
Right. So, having heard about Timmy Baterman, he digs up the grave. In the book, again, this is a major mind the pun undertaking.
Oh,
And
did it again.
hey,
Oh,
ho. So yeah, in the book, it's like there's these like 30-foot poles with spikes on the end of them, and it's like, they made it virtually impossible to get in after the cemetery is closed, and he almost like lost his testicles when he like dropped down on one of the things. Um, in the movie, he takes his shovel and grave digging tools, throws them over the wall, and hikes himself over. Hey, I'm in. I'm good to go. He starts digging up Gage's coffin in broad daylight. It's like
Nobody knows
Always like
nothing.
I'm
yeah,
always so impressed by how easy grave robbing is in movies and TV shows.
yeah,
Always.
at
You
Every
could
least
TV
tell.
show,
yeah.
every movie where this happens, they just show up with a shovel
It's like,
and do what they got to do and walk out with the body and nobody stops them. Like it's nothing.
You could tell
So
these guys have
easy.
never robbed the grave before.
no.
I,
Well,
because let me tell you, it is so hard.
I
yeah,
don't
from personal
understand.
experience. I
Uh,
I mean, so at least in the book, they made it realistic. You know, robbing a grave is hard. And hopefully if the police come by, they won't see you. Now, the police came by in the movie when there was literally a 6-foot hole, giant hole, dug in the cemetery, right by the entrance. The police come by, they shine their lights all over. The lights go onto the giant dug up hole,
Yeah.
and the police move on. Yeah, that's what would happen.
So one of the primary reasons serial killers exist is police incompetence.
yeah. Yeah.
If you do enough reading about serial killers, dude, they had Jeffrey Dahmer's victim in
Uh-huh.
front. The neighbor said he's killing this boy. The cops were like, "Yeah, that's gay people stuff. It'll be fine," and they
Oh
walked
my
the
God.
fuck away.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yep.
did see some of that series. It
And in
was
the
it was
annals
quite
of
just yeah.
history of serial killers, it is amazing how many times that they were like almost caught, and the cops were just like,
Hmm.
am I on break yet? You know?
Yeah. Lewis goes in like he sees, the police move on, and he does like this was the most bizarre looking smile I have ever seen. Where like I don't want to do it because it's an audio show, but like if you see the movie and like he's like in the hole, about to open up Gage's coffin, the police move on, and he's like, I can't even describe what the smile was like. He was like, "Oh, thank goodness, now I can continue digging up my dead son." So he takes Gage out of the coffin, holds him, brings him to the Micmac burial ground, buries him. Now,
So there's a
this,
very good reason for that face, John.
okay.
I don't know if you caught on to this, but he's a bad actor.
Um, okay. Yes. Now there is much to be said about that when we get to the end of the movie.
How much
There's
time do you have?
yes. So,
Mm.
okay. So, all right, that ends part 2, right? So we are now about to go into the third part of the movie where we find out about Rachel's sister, which I don't like this side story. With there's kind of no. I mean, yes, there is a point to it. That's why she's so against talking about death and all that stuff. But sheesh, man, it's really from the point of view of an 8-year-old girl. It's not what actually happened because people with spinal meningitis don't look like that. They don't. They don't look like monsters. They
I
just look.
had meningitis when I was a kid.
Yeah, did you look like that?
So did my son. And I will
Yeah.
tell you, I won't say for myself, but I'll say my son is an unusually handsome young man. At no point did he resemble that girl at all. I don't know what that was about. There must have been
So
something else.
anyway, yeah. So this is what we're saying. Like uh, this is why Rachel is so against death. This is why now Lewis is like, oh, I can't believe your parents did that to you. Now, oh yeah, I also forgot to mention. Lewis sent his family back to Chicago before he dug up his son's grave. That was, that's smart thinking right there, so they wouldn't get in the way. So yeah, the child now is seen breaking through the rocks, and it's a pretty cool looking shot. The child, Gage, whatever that kid's name is, embarrassingly is a better actor than the guy who played Lewis. Um, it's definitely true. So, so Rachel being in Chicago senses that something is wrong because Ellie says, I had a nightmare and it's about this guy named Pascal. And Rachel was like, well, how could she have possibly known about Pascal? There must be something going on. She's like, I gotta get back to Ludlow, Maine. And then the ghost comes back and he's like, let's help you rent a car. Let's help you get on an airplane instead of, I don't know, let me go to Lewis and try to stop him from doing what he's doing, or like, I don't know, whatever the hell it is. So, long story short, Rachel tries to get back to Ludlow, Maine, because she senses that something is wrong, and eventually she makes it after all sorts of mishaps happen. She makes it. She goes to Judd's house because that is for some reason where Gage went instead of to his own house. Gage is in a confrontation. He finds Judd. He kills Judd. Rachel goes in. She sees Gage. Gage kills Rachel and somehow manages to hang her like from the ceiling in like a trap thing where you have to open a door for her to swing out, as Lewis finds out later. So he's then realizes maybe it was a bad idea to bring my son back. And after a lot of grappling with a 2-year-old child, zombie child, he manages to stick a killing thing with a syringe into his neck. It kills Gage. I believe this was after he killed Church. And I believe the line that he used was, it's Thanksgiving Day for cats, but it's only for cats who have come back from the dead. Uh, I'm not sure if that line was supposed to sound badass. It was just a weird thing to say. I don't know. After all that, he grabs Rachel after he kills Gage, kills Church, sets Judd's house on fire with all of the dead people, including Judd, in it, and he brings Rachel to the Micmac burial ground because clearly we didn't learn anything from the first two burials.
Well, this
So,
is like what happens in Jurassic Park is the
right,
dinosaurs get out and to handle it, they let bigger dinosaurs out to take care of the
right.
little dinosaurs.
Yes.
And then when that doesn't work, they let the T-Rex out to handle the
Bigger
whole like
dinosaurs, yes.
there's no end to the poor
Right.
judgment that is happening.
So he brings he,
Sorry.
no, you're fine. You're fine. He starts bringing Rachel to the Micmac burial ground, and Pascal comes back and says, "Don't bring her there." No, and I'm like, this was the precursor to Darth Vader's no. It's just like anytime someone says no like that without screaming it, it just sounds ridiculous. So he buries Rachel because she just died. She's freshly dead, right?
Yes, and that's
And,
the rationale in his
right.
mind book
If
is he's thinking
yeah,
like we waited too long with the cat and the kid, but because this is fresh,
yeah,
she'll come back as she was. And you can
yeah.
see a theme throughout the whole book of characters trying to rationalize
Rationalize,
bad
yes.
decisions.
But they buried Church immediately, and he was not good. So, I
He
mean,
was
whatever.
also frozen solid.
Right, right, like Velcro when they tried to pick him up.
Yeah.
Um, so he buries Rachel. They show him like going to his kitchen with a deck of cards in his hand, and he's on the floor. For some reason, he's on the floor. He's not even at the table. He's sitting on the floor playing solitaire when undead Rachel comes back, and he's so thrilled to see her. He starts making out with her, and it's like the most repulsive makeout scene I have ever seen in any movie, probably. I mean, I don't know, there may be exceptions, but that's a pretty disgusting makeout scene. She grabs a knife, she stabs him, and he screams, and then we cut to the Ramones' Pet Cemetery. And that is the end of the movie. Um, lots have been said. Lots of things have been said about this movie. I want to get into a slightly more, I guess, accurate assessment, not of the movie, but of the story of, what grief can do to a person. And it's kind of like one of the overall themes is that grief makes a person do really stupid things.
Right.
Grief will put other people in danger just for the off chance that they might see their loved one again for any limited period of time. And I think that the movie really shows that in like an amazing way, or the book, should I say. Like the movie seems more matter of fact, and it seems like it's more of a surface story than the book.
Which
Um,
is almost always the case with movie adaptations of books.
Yeah, yeah. And so I just maybe go around once and we'll talk about our impression of the story and then our impression of the movie version of the story. So Jen, what do you think about it?
I think you're right that it's a story of grief, right? And family and love and what
Hmm.
people will do for the folks that they love. I think like most Stephen King books, it explores, the scary thing is never the supernatural thing or the monster thing. It's human psychology and
Hmm.
what people are capable of. And that's always the case with Stephen King. I will say September 4th marked a year since my dog passed away. We had her for maybe 14 years, something like
Hmm.
that. And so reading this again, it's been a year, over a year, and my grief is still pretty sharp about
Sure.
losing a dog. Like, still cry once or twice a month over it. Like,
Hmm.
memories come up. Like, it's tough. Like, grief sucks. And my husband had said to me that when we lost our dog, it hit him harder and was harder and worse than the loss of any person that he's experienced in his life,
Right.
which is like huge, right? Like that's a big thing to say. So I understand firsthand how much grief sucks. That being said, there's got to be a limit, and you do have to
Hmm.
understand that sometimes dead is better, and that when the pets and the people that you love are old and sick and suffering, or, in the case of this book, obviously went through some traumatic accident, like it's better for them not to be here anymore. And I think that it
Yeah.
goes into what Lewis was trying to get into in the beginning of the book, which is that death is a natural part of life. It happens to all of us. We need to talk about it. We need to accept it. And I think it's just very funny. I'm thinking of it now. In the beginning, he's sort of fighting for acceptance of death and death being natural. But all of the decisions that he makes throughout this book are him not accepting death. Um,
Yeah.
That's what
I don't
grief
know what
did
any
to
of
his
that means.
that's what
That's
grief did to his common sense.
Yeah,
And
that's
and
my
Yeah.
2 cents.
and that
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
confidence he had in understanding the natural nature of death. It's one thing to understand it, it's another thing to face it.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you know, I would say, I have two cats and if either of them passed away, uh, and I had the option to bury them in the Micmac burial ground, I feel like I wouldn't do it because,
Right.
I don't want a watered down, uncanny valley version of what used to be my pet. I want to remember my cats, like whatever, as they were when they were alive. And then when they die, you let them rest and you let them be at peace. So, it's like just bringing it back is an enormous disservice to the animal or the person that you're bringing back just because. you want to see the person or animal again.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
and my husband and I say all the time, and it's still true. If we could have her back, and do it all over again in a heartbeat, we would. And
Yeah.
I still would, and that's still true. But
Yeah.
when we say that, I mean, when she was 5 years old and healthy
Yeah.
and running and playing and happy, not in the last 3 months of her life where
Sure.
she wasn't eating and was limping and was blind from cataracts and was
Hmm.
miserable. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and so that's the part where at some point we have to accept sometimes dead is better, and that's just the way things go.
Sure.
Anybody who has had a terminally ill family member or loved one, watching them wither, suffer,
Sucks.
at almost everybody I know will harbor secretly that feeling, whether they verbalize it or not. I wish they would just go.
Yeah.
Hmm.
You watch them suffer and you go, this ain't, I've been through this with family members where you're like, that's not my father anymore.
Hmm.
Yeah.
My father
Hmm.
left that a long time ago. You know what I mean? Right now, I've always felt that like we live in a world that is very separated from death. Okay. And it's not just the modern world, it's certain cultures. We're kind of unique in this. Death happens over there. It's
Hmm.
over there. People don't die in their houses most of the time anymore. They die in a hospice or in a hospital, right? It's over there. Where did they used to die? Home.
Hmm.
Where did they used to lay out the dead? Home. Who prepared the body? The family. That used to be, we lived with this every day. And we also grieved. So like it's funny because this came up in therapy recently. I remember my father passed away. My father passed away. I was in my mid 20s, right?
Hmm.
Very close to my dad. My dad was a really nice person. He was genuinely one of the sweetest people I ever know. Loved my father very much. We were very close. I got 5 days of bereavement to bury my father.
Hmm.
3 days later, I was back at work
Yeah.
because you got to get back to work. That's how we do things here. So, do you really get to mourn? Do you really get to grieve? We don't have a healthy approach to death and dying. You
Yeah.
know, it was so bizarre to me. Recently, I was watching a documentary about Tibetan Buddhism. And in Tibetan Buddhism, they do sky burials. They take you to a mountain, they build a platform, and they leave you there for the vultures. And in the documentary, they were showing the guy taking care, and he's literally out there with a big, like a machete, cutting, and you saw him picking up a brief glance, where it's like that's a half a skeleton there, but they're in they live with this as a daily.
Yeah.
And death is traumatic inherently, whether you're causing it hunting, ethically hunting, you still just killed something. And we have always had rituals for that. If you look for a lot of in indigenous cultures to this day, a lot of the rituals and ceremonies are about the violence that they perpetrate against animals to stay alive because they have to deal with that. And they have these ritualized ways of processing the trauma and processing the emotion. We don't live in that world anymore. We live very separated from it.
Hmm.
So we're not prepared. I think I told you guys texting, one of the reasons rescheduled was I found out my mother was stage 4 with cancer.
Yeah.
And obviously, that's a very shocking, jarring thing. And what I'm very glad of is that I've thought about this moment for many years since I buried my father. I always knew there's coming the day that
Hmm.
if nature works the way nature usually works, kids bury their parents. And that's coming. So I'm going to fall apart as she gets sicker and all that kind of stuff. And those days are coming. But right now, I wasn't totally knocked off my horse with the news because I half expected it. But I've always known mom's 83. How much more time do I have left?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? So it's different in our world today because we expect everybody to be old and live a long time because most people do. The average life expectancy in the United States is like 77 years or something. We expect that. We're not prepared for young, and that will swallow you. That grief can swallow a person in totality, completely swallow a person, especially if it's your kid.
Hmm.
So it's a very, to me, that's a very realistic look at what grief can make somebody do if they're not fully prepared for it. And that's considering still, Lewis was a guy who was like, no, I live in this. You know, he
Yeah.
was a doctor. He lived up to his elbows in death and dying for years just to get to where he was. So he knows. And it still swallowed him.
Well, of course, you can see it every day. You can understand that it is obviously a natural part of everyday life. However many people die every single day and it, it's a lot different when it's personal to you. And
Exactly.
so,
Yeah.
um, yeah, you see someone like Pascal on on your operating table or your table or whatever. Yeah, sure, it's gonna freak you out, but you're only freaked out because it's a dead person on your table or someone who's like dying like right there in front of you.
Yeah.
It's not a personal thing. It's a this is freaky as shit kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. So,
So
yeah.
overall assessment though of the story, and I thought it was a great. I love Stephen King. I know that was the original question, but I got kind of sidetracked on the grief
You're
issue.
good.
I thought the story was great. I love Stephen King's world building and the mythology he builds. Very few writers, we always say this,
Mm,
very few writers create as realistic a character that you know as Stephen King does. This is where he truly excels. What I do feel is now looking at the movie, is I just think the movie was a mark of its time, very clumsily handled. A good modern filmmaker, or even a really good modern filmmaker at that time,
hmm.
would have handled it with more finesse. There was a lot of really um, clumsy handling of things that could have been handled with
Yeah.
more nuance. But I still enjoyed the movie. I still found it very creepy. Remembering that I grew up, because that is my time period, I grew
Yeah.
up with those hokey 80s horror movies. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So it's
Hmm.
not too far of a stretch. I would be shocked if I saw a movie like that today. Maybe,
Yeah, I don't think it's gonna happen like that
right?
today. The
Yeah.
effects would be overdone. It's nah. For me, Dave, you had brushed on something that I had intended to talk about for like at some point in this podcast. The guy who played Lewis Creed was like he's one of the most handsome men I've ever seen. But there's a trade-off in that he's a fucking awful actor. I don't know anything about this guy. I've never seen him in anything else. Very good looking person. Would not be surprised if he was like a soap opera actor. Uh, I don't know if you were aware of this, but Bruce Campbell was actually originally the first choice to play Lewis Creed.
You got to be kidding me.
Yeah,
Really?
I am not kidding. Bruce, and I have to say this, his fame with was an Army of Darkness and uh shit, what was the
Evil Dead.
Evil Dead, that's the one. He's a fine actor. He's a good actor, and I like his delivery so much more than I like this guy Dale Midkiff's delivery. He just said all of his lines. He either overacted or didn't act enough. He never seemed to be expressing the right kind of emotion that was called for, I felt, in almost any scene when he got angry at Rachel, you're going to explain it to her, and like, how do you know my name? And this is it, like, he just like, okay,
It's like
it,
his tone of his voice never even
yeah,
changed.
yeah, his voice never changed, and all the while I'm watching this guy, I was like, he's so handsome, but that is so overshadowed by him not being able to act. It almost felt like he took a beginner's course, like a 2-day course
Like an
in
improv,
acting,
like an
like
improv
yeah,
course in fucking
like a
Manhattan. Yeah.
crash course in acting. Like I would even say if they had the technology at the time, he took like a Zoom course in acting. And it's like, okay, when it, if there's a dead person on the table, just imagine how that would make you feel that he starts talking to you and like, how do you know my name? Like, yeah, okay, okay. You know what? We're gonna go with that. Fine. We can't get Bruce Campbell, so we don't give a shit. So
This is what our budget allows.
That was the casting exactly, is we can't get Bruce Campbell, so we don't give a shit.
And I will say, so here's the thing is like Bruce
yeah,
Campbell's a guy who built his whole career on
yeah.
being hokey,
Hmm.
right? He did, and he owns it. But the thing is, Bruce Campbell has charisma.
And he's a somewhat talented actor.
Right.
So yeah, this guy, I don't even like it. It almost felt insulting. I'm like, Jesus Christ, why did they hire this? Like, surely other people auditioned for this role.
Being
I don't.
good looking, I'm sorry,
Yeah,
is not enough. It's good when you have
no.
both.
Mm.
Like I remember when I first saw like Leonardo DiCaprio and I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh, look, another pretty boy to make the young women scream." And then I
Oh,
saw him in
what's
William
eating Gilbert?
Shakespeare's Gilbert Grape I saw
Yeah.
later. William
Romeo and
Shakespeare, Romeo and
Juliet.
Juliet, and I was like,
Yeah.
this kid, where did he pull that out of? It's like
Hmm.
Yeah.
when I first saw Brad Pitt in Legends of the Fall with all
Yep.
the hair, and I was like, look at this pretty boy. You ever seen Legends of the Fall? He was incredible. He's an
I mean,
incredible
yeah,
actor.
Leo was pretty. He's been pretty since we were 14,
Yep,
but he has aged like his acting, his looks and his acting skills. Like he has aged like a
only
fine
better.
wine. He
Yep,
gets better and better and better.
Oh yeah.
yep, yep.
And like, yeah, Leonardo DiCaprio, like Titanic, like, holy god damn.
Yeah.
He was great in that. I'm like, he's so pretty and he's a great actor. I would love to see Leonardo DiCaprio in the role of Louis Creed.
Because he belongs on camera because he's camera friendly looking. Like we said, he's pretty, but he has he's got the talent.
Yeah, yeah.
And this guy had none. I'm sorry, he had none.
Not at all. And like I was like, and then when you put him opposite Fred Gwynn, who's actually, I mean, like he's a good actor,
Yeah.
for he filled the role very well.
Yep.
And everyone else in the movie other than Fred Gwynn and the fucking 2-year-old boy. They were the they were the good actors in the movie. Fucking Ellie. God, man. Like
So
I
while we're on tangents about actors, I looked this up weeks ago because I wanted to verify what I thought. I knew I recognized the little boy, Gage.
yeah.
Do you guys know? So he played Michelle Tanner's little boyfriend on Full House
Hmm.
1,000 years ago,
Wow.
and he was the little boy in the Terminator who said, "Boys have a penis and girls have a vagina."
You mean Kindergarten Cop.
Kindergarten Cop.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, yeah, yeah. In Kindergarten Cop. That's right.
Hmm.
I knew I recognized. I was like, I know that
Yeah.
big-headed little child from somewhere.
That's where he learned to act was Full House. I mean, that was
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
set filled with top-notch acting talent on that show.
Oh man,
All Schwarzenegger
we have gotten off track.
all Schwarzenegger movies are the Terminator.
Yes, correct. Yes, that's exactly correct.
All right. Closing thoughts, anyone?
Sure.
No. Oh, okay.
I have some closing thoughts. And John, I told you this over text message probably, but
Hmm.
what was interesting is I've reread Pet Sematary probably 3 or 4 times now, maybe in my life. Um, Never considered it like one of my favorites, but obviously something about it was good enough that made me read it more than once. And when I started reading it this time for this podcast, a couple of weeks back, audiobook version,
Hmm.
as I started listening to the story, and this just kind of shows the impact that Stephen King's work has. As I started listening again and remembering and getting into it, I had this overwhelming feeling of sadness and dread for the family, for the fictional characters, of
Yes.
like, oh God, these poor people and what they're about to go through. Like, I can't believe they have to go through this awful thing. And first of all, having that kind of feeling for fictional characters is a big deal. Like, it shows that there's an impact, but also I've reread it probably 11 or 12 times in my life now. It's one of my favorite Stephen King books. I like to read it at least twice a decade because it changes as you get older and you change and you learn more and more about it. Um, and as many times as I've read it and all the terrible things that happened to the kids in that book and everything else, I've never had that. I never had that feeling rereading it of like that dread of, oh, these
Mm.
poor people and what they're going to have to go through. And so
Interesting.
starting to reread this book and getting that sinking feeling just made me realize how truly awful what happens to all of them is.
Can I want to qualify what you're saying because I did have this thought a while ago, and I'm glad that I am reminding myself to say it now. A lot of Stephen King books, they are like, here's a thing that's happening, and here are the results of that thing that is happening. Pet Sematary seems to be uncharacteristically linear of a story for a Stephen King book. Do you agree, Jen?
I have to think about that.
So, and what I mean is this, like, okay, all of his stories are obviously like they have a beginning, a middle, and an end, and things happen, blah blah blah. But The Shining was really like, just for example, The Shining was more about like this family is taking care of a hotel, and it is slowly bringing like dragging Jack Torrance into madness, and here's how the family is responding to that madness. It doesn't feel as much like a linear story as a like cause and effect, and how are we feeling about this cause and effect, you know?
So
Pet
you
Sep
think
yeah.
that
Mhm.
Pet Cemetery is more a sequence of
A
events?
sequence of events that lead up to a climax. I mean, I don't know. I haven't read a lot of Stephen King, but all of the other books that I've read, like even a book like Carrie, uh, I guess, why am I drawing a blank? Misery. Misery is linear. Misery is definitely linear.
I could see that. Yeah.
But yeah,
It's more like
right.
Misery and Pet Cemetery are here are the things that's happening right now
Yeah.
and the reactions to them. Like it's
Hmm.
more real time, whereas you're saying the other ones are a slow build of things that lead to other things.
Yeah. Like this is a thing that's happening, and now it's happening more, and now it's happening more, and now, the people who are experiencing it are responding to it. Like I don't know. I think that's just kind of the way I saw it. You look like you don't necessarily agree.
I mean, I don't know that we have time to unpack. I'm not sure I
Okay.
understand what you're saying is my face that the readers, listeners can't see
I
is
see. Okay.
that I'm not sure I understand what you're saying. But
Okay.
in the interest of closing thoughts,
Yes.
I'll table that.
That's fine. That's fine. Yeah, you and I, Jen, can talk about that later. Uh, it is definitely a very like it was something that had occurred to me, and I wasn't like I'm so smart for figuring this out. It was really more like this is kind of what I'm feeling, you
Yeah.
know. Yeah. Okay. And on that note,
Wait,
this
we
is
didn't get any closing thoughts from Dave. Now I'm sad.
ah wait, Dave, closing thoughts.
Closing thoughts. Again, dated. There was things about it that just not well made. The main character, awful actor, but I'm
Mm,
still glad I watched it. And I will say that whole thing you were saying, Jen, about how you were like dreading for these people, knowing what they were about to go through. You had the advantage of you've seen it before, you've read it before. I didn't, so
Oh,
I'm going
interesting.
hindsight. I only read part of it, remember? So
Yeah.
going hindsight, it's fucked up, man. What this family went through, like it was,
And
it,
That's
scene.
that's
it
that's
was
that's
complete.
hindsight though.
Think about it. The
Yeah.
whole family was wiped off the face of the earth,
True.
Yeah.
down to the
Yeah.
Ex
pets.
Except for Ellie. Ellie was for some reason she stayed in Chicago, nothing happened to her.
Yeah,
The parents died, Gage died, Ellie is starting a new life with
yeah.
her grandparents.
Yeah, I'm sure she's going to grow up to be a well-adjusted adult.
Oh, 100%, yeah.
But yeah, like I shared that as well. I think it's fair. It was an awfully sad thing I mean, a lot of these books and movies, right? They're brutal and they're sad, but this thing was for some reason it was because it also was like the kid. The kid died. It was there's
Mm,
something different. I don't know how you guys are, but like you see a little kid suffering or an elderly person suffering or an animal suffering. It's very different than watching someone in their strong their prime
Yeah.
suffering. There's a difference.
hmm
They're all suffering. Suffering is suffering, but there's a more heartstring tugging at it. I also loved, again, I said it before, the world building, the mythos that he created. He's very, very good at that. The movie was handling the story clumsily. I still had a good time with it. I still would say, if you're okay watching older movies and understand and can understand that movies were made differently because every generation refines the art form more, like if you
hmm
could sit there and watch Dracula with Bela Lugosi and go, wow, that has some creepy stuff in it, then you're appreciating the art even outside of your own time. I would still recommend this movie. I still think it was fun.
Yeah, I recommend it. I say you should watch it. I would say watch the 89 version before you watch the 2019 version because they just take the story and they just mangle it to death until it's no pun intended. They need to take that movie and bury it in the Micmac burial ground. And that is now the second or third time I've made that joke. Um, so yeah, the 2019 movie I don't recommend. I would recommend it just because, that way you can make a comparison, but it's just not it's not the story. It's a different story. So, um okay. Good timing. Jen, do you want to tell the folks where you can be found?
I can be found on the Facebook as Jennifer Sinclair Ringler. And that is all you need to know.
hmm She has very amusing posts with her husband.
That's true. I'm hilarious.
Yes.
Yes, yes,
Yes,
you
it is true.
absolutely are. And I can't wait to see that coffee table book of your text conversations.
Dave, what about you?
So I don't know if you guys noticed. I'm taking a little bit. I've gotten off of social media. It's an
We
ugly
did.
time, and I
hmm
Yeah.
cannot deal with this shit anymore. It's just nothing but headache. So I'm still out there. I do have maintained my LinkedIn much safer because it's just work stuff. It's no drama, it's no politics, no culture wars. So I can be reached on LinkedIn. That's Dave Aguilar or David Aguilar. I forget which one it is. Aguilar. Still writing, still doing writing projects. You could see some of that stuff over on at ariesdesk.blogspot.com. That's EYRIES, ariesdesk.blogspot.com. Mostly really depressing stuff. So come on, have a laugh.
Beautiful. And I'm John Seymour, Jon space Seymor. That's me on Facebook. I am standing in front of a golden backdrop, pointing to the screen with a weird smirk on my face. That's me on Facebook. You can find me there. Um, at some point, we are going to be doing an episode about The Shining. This may have to wait until December, but you know what? It's going to be worth the wait because this was it was an assignment, a project that I wanted to do with you guys for a while. Uh, Time got away from us, and I was just like, you know what? It's going to take too long to get through the book and the movies again. But as it turns out, the book is actually not as long as I remember.
Yeah.
So I will I will happily do that again in preparation for the Shining movie and book discussion. Um, we're recording an episode, a Halloween episode on this podcast is Lamb Chops, about a movie called The Video Dead. It's a zombie movie. It's an 80s zombie movie. It's awful and it takes itself seriously, and that makes it all the more awful and amazing. Um, Jen, I believe you said you would be part of that panel. We also have a gentleman by the name of Ken Radner on that panel, and I'll see if I can get a fourth. So there's that. I have a Chris Cyanide gig coming up at Club Andromedon in Nyack, New York. That is going to be happening on October 11th, and we're going on kind of late, like 10 p.m. but still it's a lot of fun. And then another band that I'm playing in, it's called Headband. It's more of like a straight rock and metal band. We are playing Olives in Nyack, November 7th. We start about 8 p.m. and yeah, that's what we have for now.
I
And
need you to send me those dates. Text those dates to me. See if I can make any of them.
I will certainly send you those dates. And I mean, there's also a Chris Cyanide show happening December 19th, but that's like so far in the future, it's you know, not even worth mentioning right now. Um, and that's that. So it just remains for me to say thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, Dave. And thank you all for listening. This was a very fun episode to record. So good night.
Good night, everybody.
Bye.